Hey guys, Jodie here from Glamourous Vintage Designs and welcome to my channel. Today I am going to be painting this chest of drawers behind me here, and I am going to be painting them in silk all-in-one mineral paint. So I'm thinking we're going to have some texture, it's going to be feminine, it's going to be a little bit grungy. So I'm going for a very oldie worldy style that's kind of girly, just with a bit of attitude as well. So make sure you stay tuned for that. So if you didn't know already, silk has a built-in top coat and a built-in primer and odour blocker, so it is so easy to use and it means there's not a lot of faffing. But what you might have not known is that you can also mix sea spray with silk. I'm going to start with Endless Shores, which is an off-white colour, and I'm going to mix it with sea spray. Alright, so I am going to put 2 scoops of sea spray into my cup. It's generally recommended to put around 8 ounces of paint to 2 scoops, and as you're doing this, silly faces are absolutely required as well. I'm just saying. No, I'm joking. And yeah, and then I'm going to give my paint a good shake, because sometimes when it's sat there the water can separate and this will just help recombine it. I don't really particularly measure, but this is the kind of texture that I'm going for here. And I'm going to use a chip brush to apply my textured paint, and that is because these kinds of paintbrushes are quite inexpensive and I'm not worried about making them dishevelled. And I'm just going to stipple it on. So this is a natural bristled brush which will add more texture, and stippling will add more texture as well. And I will also, as you can see here, I am stippling in different directions, so I'm going up, down, left, right, and this will also create more interesting texture. As I said before, I don't really measure my sea spray mixtures, I just kind of go with what feels right, so you just have a play and just see what kind of texture works for you. I am also going to stipple it on the top of this piece, and I am painting the top of this piece exactly the same as the rest of the piece. Alright, so now that my silk paint is nice and dry on the front of my drawers there, I'm going to go in and blend some silk colours. I'm going to be using some brand spanking new silk colours today. So let me show you. This, today, Umber. This is going to be my shading colour, and it's a gorgeous dark brown. This is going to age my piece. I'm going to go back in there with Endless Shores. And this is going to make my piece look a little bit highlighted and sun bleached. But my main colour is this new gorgeous silk colour from Dixie Belle called Desert Rose, which is like a dusky rose colour. I think it's gorgeous. So that's what we're working with today. And I just want to say, I don't want to confuse you guys. So silk usually is the perfect paint for a nice, smooth, sleek finish. I just want to get a little bit playful with it today. I will be misting a tiny little bit of water just to help it blend. But I wouldn't recommend using too much water with silk because it could affect the built-in primer, the built-in top coat, etc, etc. But I'm just going to be using a tiny little bit today, so it won't affect that. But yeah, so let's just play and see what happens. I'm starting with a tiny mist of my water, and for this blend I will be using synthetic brushes. So I'm starting with Desert Rose and just getting a good base on there. I'm going to work in sections here, so I'll start with the top drawer first and work drawer by drawer. And then once I've applied my Desert Rose, I will then go in with my Umber, which is my dark brown, and just gently put this around the edges. Again, working in sections. Silk doesn't have a long dry time compared to chalk mineral paint, so you do have to kind of work fast, so it is better to work in sections if necessary, if you can. Also, my workshop is quite cold, which will also slow down the drying process as well. So again, I'm using synthetic brushes because these are the best for soft blends, and I'm putting maybe half, like a tiny little bit of umber on there on the half side of the drawer, and then once I feel like that has blended well, I'm going in and blending the umber into the other side of the drawer as well. The chalk mineral paint range is definitely easier for blending. That being said, there are colours in the silk range that aren't in this chalk mineral paint range, which you may want to blend with and do more creative looks with. And also, because silk has that built-in primer and it has that built-in top coat, it just makes it a lot, a lot kind of easier, and as I said before, less faffing. So I'm putting a little bit of the Desert Rose at the bottom now, and then just blending a little bit of that Umber over the top. As I say, you can use a tiny little bit of water, and as you can see here, I just keep very gently dipping my paintbrush into the Umber to make this work, so that I'm not overly saturating my furniture with paint, which will make it more difficult to blend. I'm also using a paintbrush for each colour, again, so that my paintbrushes don't get oversaturated with paint and just become one big muddy mess. In the middle there, I am applying a tiny little bit of the Endless Shores as a highlighter, and again I'm building it up gradually, not going in there crazy with all the paint. I'm putting in a tiny little bit, and then I'm actually blending with the Desert Rose brush, and this is just to kind of soften those edges up and to make sure that it looks nice and soft and blended. Because silk dries differently to chalk mineral paint as well, because it has that built-in top coat, and because the drying time is much quicker, then don't overwork it too much. If you feel like the paintbrush is starting to drag too much, then just let it dry and then go back in there and try again, or build on what you've already done, because the last thing you want is to be dragging the paint and creating, you know, lots of awful brush strokes and things like that. Unless you want that look, that's a totally different look, and that's fine. But for a smooth blend, just you kind of need to build it up gradually but work quick at the same time. As you can see here, my brush has become quite saturated and it isn't blending as well as it should. So I'm just going in there again with my Desert Rose brush and just blending that out. So as you blend, use different brush strokes. You can kind of, you know, use your brush left and right, up and down, but also little squiggles can help sometimes just to blend those edges out. A different way to blend is also to put on all the paint where you want it, and then go to a what I call a neutral brush, which is a brush without paint on it, and then just blend those edges out. It's all just down to personal preference and what works for you, but here I just wanted to show you a different way of blending. For me, the first way was much easier for silk paint. Okay, so next up is this gorgeous colour called Rozay from the Moonshine Metallics range, which is a pink metallic. So I am applying it with a Gator hide sponge, and I have saturated my furniture, and as you can see here, I'm also saturating it and misting water on as I go along. The reason why I'm doing this is because even though the silk paint range does have a satiny kind of finish to it as it dries, I just wanted something more with a pink tinge to it. That being said, I didn't want the Rozay to completely take over and change the colour of the piece, so by watering it down and then blending it out, it means that I'm going to get this really nice pink tinged glaze, and it's just going to help the piece look a little bit more iridescent. There is no rush for this part either. You can just keep misting the Rozay, and it will just kind of keep watering down as much as you like, and then you can add more if you feel like you've watered it down just a little bit too much. And I also won't seal this, so the Moonshine Metallic range tends to cure on its own quite nicely, so I'm not going to worry about top coating this. Maybe keep a rag to hand as well, or a spare sponge if you feel like your sponge is getting too saturated, which it can. So just make sure you keep something to hand so you can wipe off the excess, or just keep another cheap sponge around so that can kind of take over, because otherwise you might find it difficult to blend. Alright, so now I have 120 grit sandpaper, and I'm just sanding over the top of this. Because the sea spray is underneath, what this means is that all that gorgeous Endless Shore will start to peek through and create a sort of patina effect. Do this quickly because of the the curing abilities of the top coat in silk paint, and also do it unevenly so that it looks like it's happened organically. The drawers got a little bit sticky there, so I had to kind of pull that one out from underneath. You guys ask these questions sometimes, and I want to show you that sometimes happens. Alright, so I'm using a silkscreen stencil mandala here now, and these are awesome. I love them because they stop bleed through, there's no faffing. We're all about not faffing around on this channel. We like things to be simple. And I'm going in with a bit of chopped up sponge, and applying gemstone mousse in Golden Gem. I'm going to apply this fairly unevenly because I want this to look like it's faded over time, and I'm just going to apply this as a trim in over all of the drawer edges. And here's a finished look. What do you think? Do you think I achieved the kind of girly, grungy glam piece with a bit of attitude? Let me know in the comments below, and as always, have a wonderful time painting and take care. Bye bye.